Welcome to the Germinate Podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. Okay, folks, I guess I'm just going to say this is a bit of a special edition of the Germinate Podcast. I've got an awesome friend on, and I'm calling you a friend already, Adam, because I know we've only had a couple of conversations, but sometimes you get a good vibe from folks, and you're definitely one of those guys. And with what happened yesterday, we're recording this about 10 o'clock in the morning on September 11th of all days, and we're just going to kind of dive into the news of what happened with Charlie Kirk yesterday with a guest that has a lot probably on your shoulders, because Mr. Adam Steen is going to run for governor of Iowa. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. I consider you a friend as well. And I do believe that those friendships can build very, very quickly when both people are on the same page of the same book, going in the same direction.
Yeah, so true. And I don't know, I guess that's maybe where I want to go this morning. I saw a post by Tim Tebow, and it's this book. Have you ever read a book called People of the Lie by M. Scott Peck by chance?
I've not.
Okay, I'll send it to you after this. And it's weird. I just started reading this, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago. And really it's a psychological exploration of human evil is what it's really all about. Yeah. And that the devil is real here. Yep. And I don't know if we hear that enough in our world. And what happened yesterday is definitely a reflection of the devil's work. That's the only way I can explain it. Yep. I don't think there is another way to explain it. So I guess let's just start by getting your thoughts on yesterday and your thoughts on this crazy world we live in.
Yeah, no, like we talked before we started here, and just kind of for your viewers to know, like we didn't prep this because we're reeling, we're numb. And there were actually 2 events from yesterday, when Charlie Kirk was shot, and then there was a shooting in Colorado. And it is pure evil. The devil is real. He is working on the minds of people on a regular basis, and he is patient. This just didn't happen overnight. This started years ago with the devil removing Bible from schools, removing prayer from schools. I believe it was in the 60s or maybe 70s, like 72, 73, when prayer and the Bible was removed from schools, our education declined instantly. And this is 50 years in the making. And the devil has lulled us to sleep. He has made us comfortable, made us feel like we're quote unquote happy. He puts sports ahead of church. He puts feelings ahead of truth. And we sit back and we let him take ground from us, so much so that when we see these things, we can't even say thoughts and prayers anymore, because the devil has so screwed up people's minds that they turn that into a political weapon. This isn't about politics. This is about the church. This is about God's church, and what we need to do as people to realize that, hey, one, there's a creator God. There is a creator God. And I don't care if you're a historian or not, but if you're a historian, you can go back and you can look at the history of the world. I don't care if you're a geologist or whatever they are, an archaeologist. You can go back and look at the facts in the ground, in the earth. There's a creator God. We are created, and that means that the Bible is true, and that means that there is good, there is evil, and there are sides. And we need to step up and start figuring that out, because if we let the other side take over our side, it is game over.
Yeah, I think that's so wise. I think what's interesting about yesterday that happened, and I mean, I love what you said about we're putting our value in the wrong things, our houses and our cars and whether or not you make a ton of money at work or the next business deal. And those are impossible expectations to live up to. There's never enough when we should put our value in God, because that is enough. That is all we need. And I think the interesting part about yesterday is it almost instantly went political. I was at a show in Chicago, a show called Fab Tech. It's this technology driven show. And one of my colleagues said, "Oh my gosh, Charlie Kirk just got shot." And I almost went down. I was like, wait a minute, what? What's happening here? And I don't think this is political. I think what resonated with such people is he was kind of he was speaking, he was trying to find the truth. And my kids, I have two teenage kids, and they were crushed because they see him on their TikTok feed. And, there's this resurgence going on with kids that are like, I want to get back to God. This stuff the truth is so obvious. It's so obvious. And I think that's what maybe made this, as of right now, I don't know if it's a guy, a gal, a group of people, who knows? Nobody knows what happened yet. And I don't know. I don't think it's political. I think it's this truth versus lie thing. And sometimes the devil, like you said, is real. And he dug his claws and paws and in, and all of a sudden starting to believe it, you know?
You hit it right on the head in a couple things. One, it's truth versus lies. This is evil. This is demonic. But is it any wonder that the devil wanted somebody to do what they did yesterday because your kids are listening to him? They're learning truth. He created one of the largest platforms in the country, if not the world, for youth to learn truth. God works through generations, and there's a generation of kids that are getting baptized. I talked about it in a Monday political speech at my church, that there were two guys in the audience. One was my nephew and one was his buddy. They're 16 years old. They both got baptized to show their friends and family that they were committing to Christ. And Charlie Kirk had a massive audience and a massive following. Is it any wonder the devil wanted to stop that? Now, the beauty of it is that the Lord works in mysterious ways, and the Lord can use that in ways that can take his message to heights that he never could have reached on this earth. But you hit it right on. This is evil, and he was impacting kids in such a positive way that it's no wonder the devil didn't want him around.
Yeah. And like we said, we're just numb to it. There's no real way to explain it other than that. I mean, that's one thing I would say to everybody maybe listening that's questioning God. And I get that. It was me. I was there. We've all been there. But what you shouldn't be able to question, I don't want to tell you what you can and cannot think, but you do know that bad things happen in the world. That happens all the time. And it could be something silly, like, you stub your toe, but it could also be something real, like, you're a teenager and your parents are going through a divorce. Or in your case, which I want to talk about, you've got a child that is born sick. And what can you do but say, Lord, help me. My gosh, I'm on my knees here. I don't know how to explain this any other way. And so when evil's real, that also means another thing. That also means there's also this guy out there fighting for us, man. He's fighting every day for us. And boy, if that doesn't give you tingles and make you feel something, I don't know what does, right?
You're not living, you're not alive if you don't feel that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I do want to get into a little bit, because now what the governor of Utah said yesterday, I just thought was spot on. You could tell that guy just said it right off the cusp. And if you guys haven't heard that yet, you should go listen to it, because it's just real words coming out, real raw emotion. But it also shows the importance of leadership, specifically in times like this. And you're now putting yourself, I don't know, I don't want to say like in the line of fire, but it seems strange to me that almost like if you talk about a certain thing, I don't know, will this ever stop? Have you thought about that these last 24 hours or so? I'm sure it's weighing on your mind.
Yeah, I'll just tell you straight up what I told my wife last night. So she and I were coming. So I resigned my job. So I'm working from home if I'm not speaking at an event or somewhere else. And she still got her job. And so she was coming home from work. I'd gotten here from another event I was at. And when she got home, I said, look, I don't feel any fear right now. I don't feel like I should be afraid. And I'll just be straight up, because I said, I don't have the platform right now. I'm 2.5 weeks into this announcement, and I could back off on things that I'm saying. I could back off on good versus evil, truth versus lies, woke versus common sense. I could back off on all of that. And we could probably sort of coast through and not feel like we're a target, or not feel like we're in anybody's sort of visceral hate binoculars, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, now's the time we've got to keep fighting. Now's the time we got to keep going. Now, straight up, we're having conversations about security and what do we do if and when we start to build a platform that is more recognized and more noticed. Because I think that's important. I think that's part of what we have to do as human beings on this earth, is plan and prepare for that. But right now, I don't feel that fear. But I do believe there's going to be a moment where things get really real in that arena, and I have to be prepared for that. Again, I'm not trying to say, hey, I was nowhere near a Charlie. I'm not anywhere near a Charlie Kirk. I'll probably never be anywhere near a Charlie. So I'm not trying to make a comparison there.
Sure.
But this race is probably the most important race in the history of the state of Iowa from a gubernatorial perspective. It's the first time in 16 years there's been an open primary for the Republican governor. And right now, the Democrats, they smell blood in the water. They have a candidate that is trying to be friendly to all, and there are no sides, and we can all come together, and we're all happy, and we're all going to sing Kumbaya. And that ain't going to work, because if that is true, that means we have to push truth aside and go to their side, which is lies, and try to befriend that. And that is impossible to do. So I don't feel fear right now, but I'm planning and preparing for a moment where I need security with us to make sure that my staff is safe, to make sure that my family, my wife, my boys are safe, because it is a very real potential as we move forward. Now I'll say this, and I'll be quiet. If I decided to say, I'm going to back off on my messaging, I'm going to back off on speaking truth, I'm just going to kind of go more political and just try to make everybody happy and cater to the corporate elites and just be Mr. Nice Guy, I could do that, and I'll finish third. And I'm not going to do that because I believe the Lord's called me to do this to win. My entire background is athletics, it's competition, it's winning. And so I'm doing this because the Lord put me in this spot, and I'm going to honor him, and I'm going to win this by speaking truth.
You said when we were talking this morning that you put a video out. I don't know if did you put that out this morning?
Yeah, I put out a reel on our Facebook page and my campaign page and my personal page. Yeah.
Talk about that video and tell me what brought you to put that out, and kind of the reaction you got, if you want to go into that. Wait a minute now, Adam, you're running for governor, and there's this set guidelines when you run for governor. You're supposed to behave this way, you're supposed to act this way, you're supposed to do this and that, and you kind of said, hey man, screw this is how I feel, and I'm going for it. So talk about that video.
Yeah. So last night, as we tried to get settled in for the night, it was probably my wife and I, the boys went to bed, and I just had a pit in my stomach. It was just and I was getting text messages from friends, family, like, hey, we're praying for you. We're numb. We've got these pits in our stomachs. And I had the same one. And I woke up in the morning hoping that pit would be gone, but it wasn't. And I get up early in the morning, and I've got a little home gym in my garage, and I just sat there, and I couldn't get rid of this pit. And I hate social media. I hate taking selfies. I hate doing these videos that I'm supposed to do. It's just,
I can relate. I know what you mean. Yeah.
it's just not, I don't like doing it. So as I sat there and I felt like this Holy Spirit, like, you got to do a video. I knew it wasn't me because I'm not a guy that's going to say, Adam, you got to do a video. And so I sat there and I don't know if it was a minute and a half, 2 minutes, but I did a video talking about, and I'll be straight up, I don't even remember exactly what I said on it, but talked about the pit in my stomach. I talked about the difference in the woke versus common sense, and how we're at a crossroads in this state from a cultural perspective. And I mentioned there's a special election in Northwest Iowa where unfortunately Senator DeWitt passed away of, I believe it was pancreatic cancer. And so it's a special election up there. And the Democrats shipped in 30,000 volunteers. Now, I can tell you right now, those people don't do things on a volunteer basis. There is money being exchanged to get people to go up there and do that. You don't just do that. 30,000 people descend upon this district, this House district, or excuse me, Senate District 1, and they flip that seat from red to blue. Now, that is their game plan. They are going to ship people in from outside of the state into Iowa to change our culture. Iowa has a culture of hard work, grit, faith, family, and they're going to come in and try to decimate that. And that's their game plan, is to bring people in. They're going to have a candidate who's kumbaya. We're all happy. We all love each other. And then they're going to come in and they're going to decimate our culture, and we will be done. Good luck getting that back. So they're going to bring in hundreds of thousands of people because they brought in 30,000 to a District 1 race in Northwest Iowa. Now, I posted and I talked about that. And if I remember correctly, I didn't ask for money. I didn't ask for anything other than, I think at the end I said, let's win this. I think I said, like, you need to pick a candidate now. Pick a candidate that's going to fight for you, that's going to work for you. I used my words and those things that I've been using. But I just laid it out from my heart. And I don't mean this in a negative way, that there was conversations about, well, did you make it too political? Did you turn, is it too soon? And we need to have you be more pastoral in this situation. And I thought about it and I listened very carefully, and it wasn't a frustrating moment between the team. It was just like, okay, there's competing views here. And I appreciate that. I have to have that as I go out and do this, because I'm not a politician. Never run a campaign before, but I know who I am. I know what truth is. And I know that if I don't speak from the heart, everyone knows it. And I just choose to speak from the heart. So I thought about it. We kept the post up, and it is exploding in a very, very good way across the ether, or whatever it's called. And I'll go back to this. Pastors in the founding era of this country, they were the ones that the townsfolk went to get their guns, to get their people, to get people to show up to fight the British. So Paul Revere, Wentworth Chiswell, I believe there's one other writer. We all hear about Paul Revere, but there were other writers that went out and they woke up the pastors to get the pastors to get their congregation to go out and keep the British from taking their town over. Now, the local church, by and large, has removed themselves from the conversation of ideology, of culture, of truth versus lies. And we have a mass of people in this state that just want to feel good, and they just want to be happy, and they just want to have a home, and they just want to we should want that. We should want the American dream. We should want to prosper. We should want liberty. We should want to be happy. But that comes with a cost. It comes with the cost of being able to speak the truth and being willing to talk to your neighbors about the truth, flat out, of Jesus Christ. I said in my opening speech, I'm a Jesus guy. And I'm telling you, there were a lot of people on my side that were pumped about that. There were a lot of people on my side that were like, whoa, you got to kind of back off that Jesus stuff, man. I'm like, that's who I am.
Right.
And I'm not going to back down from it.
It's funny. This was a couple years ago. I was traveling to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and we get and this is you're gonna understand why I'm telling this story here in a second. But I'm flying there. The flight gets delayed, so we go back and sit in the airport, and I sit next to this guy. I don't know why I do this, but my wife always makes fun of me. But if I see a bald guy with a beard, I'm always like, "Hey, man, nice haircut," And
Body
it's
double.
just yeah, exactly. And I sat down and started talking to this guy, and we just had a conversation. Well, he was doing some hunting in Patagonia, and I was there on business. But regardless of the point, flight gets canceled. Come back the next day. Here's this guy again, and I find out he's a pastor of a church in Florida. Actually, his name is Joby Martin, and I encourage everyone. I'll put it in the show notes so people can look him up. But I started listening to his sermons. And I go back to my home church, which I go to a church here in Des Moines, big church. I'm not going to say the name of it, but I'm not sure we've had a message on the Old Testament in maybe 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's always, which I'm not saying this is bad, but it's always Jesus has got your back, and Jesus is, this forgiver, this grace-filled person, almost like this kind of pansy of a guy,
Yep.
And it's like, that's not my Jesus, man. My Jesus is a badass. This dude is a bad mother. And I start listening to Joby, and he's talking about Elijah and these prophets and these powerful, just unbelievable things. And I'm like, that's what we're talking about. It's sort of what Charlie Kirk talked about as well. Like, we've gotten comfortable with religion, and especially Christianity, and not so much driven home the fact that there's these forces battling. There's these wars going on every day. I don't want to get political for myself, but I don't really care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I'm so sick of them both, to be honest with you. I just want to know the truth. I want somebody that's going to speak the truth to me and my family and my kids, and clean up this country and make sure that they have a safe place to live, and make sure that they can get on a subway, for gosh sakes, and ride it without having this feeling of getting stabbed in the neck. It's what's happening. This is insane.
Yeah.
And there's this guy that we can talk about that's that he's fighting this war for us. It's not an easy battle, man. There should really nothing good should happen in this world as a result. Really, the fact that there is, it's like we should be on our knees for it.
Absolutely.
And I'm winging this whole thing, so I don't even know my point here, other than to say that I think you're onto something by saying let's start finding out the truth here, and it doesn't really matter where anybody stands. It's like it feels like we have been lied to for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 50 years. I don't know.
Probably
right?
more than 50 years. Yep.
50 years of what's the truth. And there's all these lingering things, and no one's held accountable. The whole COVID debacle, nobody gets held accountable. What's that all about? Like, I don't even understand it. Then you get into all the cultural wars, and who should be in a locker room and who should be on a team. Like, this is common sense stuff, folks. What are we talking about? This is insane.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And because you went there, I'm going to go there too.
Go ahead. Yeah,
so
go ahead.
This ain't political. This is just my life. The last 5 years before I resigned to jump into the race, I oversaw a department of the state that had many divisions. It was administrative services, which no one knows about, no one cares about, until you realize that it's the entire operations of the state that I oversaw for 5 years. One enterprise within my department was Capitol grounds and state real estate, which means that it's my call when protesters get out of line down at the Capitol. It's my call to deny events at the Capitol when I feel like they're inappropriate or will disrupt business or whatever. It's a collaboration between on tough decisions, and I'll tell you about a couple of them. It's a collaboration between myself, the Attorney General's office, the Governor's office, the House, the Senate, and any other attorney that wants to jump into the conversation to help us figure out how and when we're going to get sued for certain decisions. So, and then I then work with DPS, the Department of Public Safety, which are the state troopers who love those dudes. They're phenomenal human beings. When you see those guys stand there knowing they could just rip the face off of anybody that they wanted to at any time. And they stoically stand there and let people have their free speech and their rights. There were a couple situations that I got involved in. Now, there was the civil rights bill that passed that removed gender identity from a protected class within state law. No-brainer, common sense legislation. What that ultimately means is that if I'm a male pretending like I'm a female, I can't legally go into a female bathroom or the women's locker room and be protected for that. There's punishment for it. It's common sense. Now, I stood in the middle of thousands of protesters in that situation, and I had to sit there and listen to the vile hate being spewed at me because we were enacting common sense, freedom related policy that protects people. And I've had somebody say this. They said, "Where's the freedom for the transgender person?" And that's like, time out. The freedom is that they are a biological male or female, and they can go into the designated restroom of their birth gender. That's freedom. Where there is no freedom is in other states. Now that Iowa's got this, other states where females are forced to live with biological males. They're forced to let biological males come into their locker rooms and change in front of them. Where's the freedom for them? Where's the freedom for our kids?
Yeah.
That ain't freedom. That's some
Yeah.
sort of vile, demonic attempt at assimilation in an area that shouldn't even be talked about because it's doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and the accountability question, but I also kind of want to go here, get your take on this. I mean, sometimes when we act like our own God, what we did last Tuesday, you justify it. You're like, oh, it's no big deal, it's just maybe it's just this one time, and it's I'll never do it again, or I'm not harming anybody, or whatever. We're sinful people. I'm one of them. I know it. It's why I need God. And I'm also a believer that everybody is a child of God, whether you're a transgender or whether you're this or that. That doesn't really matter to me. But instead of leading them to the truth, instead of leading them down a path, we kind of just say, you know what, it's okay. That sin, it's okay. It's just this one little time, and it's not that big of a deal. And we all do this. We all do it. Everybody sins. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. What you did last Thursday, God wasn't in the room. The problem is he was in the room. He knows. And if you think about it that way, it's like, oh gosh, one time, no big deal. Who cares? But that's why I love the Charlie Kirk resurgence, because it was like, he kind of never really put people down. He just kind of said, why don't you think about it this other way? Maybe there is this other path. And yeah, there were some things he said that were probably silly and off the cusp, but that's what made him popular. He could relate. He was a relatable person. And so, all of us are sinners. All of us are children of God. That's what we're taught to believe. That's what I know you believe. And that's what I know I believe. And so these issues are so strange and sort of hard to deal with. But the reality of it is too, we're all child of God, not just the sinner, and not just the saint, but all of us together. And that's the policies that make it probably really tough for you and for Kim Reynolds and for Donald Trump and everybody else making these policies, because I don't know, it's a tough thing, man. And I don't know if anybody's presented it to you like that or not, but what's your take on that?
Somebody has to be willing to carry the burden. Somebody has to be willing to make the tough call. I mean, that's leadership at the end of the day.
Right.
And again, I'll go a little bit sort of campaign speech mode here, but the governor is the CEO of the state, and any CEO of any company, from my perspective, has to be able to understand three things. They have to be able to understand the operations of the business. So any CEO of any business should probably understand how to operate the business.
Right.
The CEO also has to understand what culture is, what community is, what the makeup of their teams are, so that they can lead a charge to keep people motivated to achieve the end result or product, whatever the company is producing. So if it's banking, how do you get people fired up to go get more mortgages, get more deposits, do more loans, all those
Yep.
different things. Like the CEO has to understand how to motivate people and really where the foundation of that company lies so that the culture can be built from the foundation, not from somewhere else, not being shipped in from outside of the company to change the culture and move decisions forward. And then the third thing is a CEO, a governor, needs to understand policy and the political ramifications of decisions. There are handbooks within companies. So a company has to have a handbook. They have HR policy. They have different things that employees have to follow. That is the law of the land within that company. Well,
Right.
the law of the land for the governor, the CEO of the state of Iowa, is Iowa code. There's also administrative rule, and there's also policy. So there are three areas that the CEO of the state needs to understand. You've got the law, and then you've got administrative rule, which is the department's collaborative interpretation of that law and how to execute that law.
Yep.
Then there's policy, which is easy to change, that's not as weighty as an administrative rule. Like I'll give you an example. When I first got to DAS, I had a email come through about approving the purchase of a microwave within a company. My budget is in the B's. It's in the billions of a budget, and another agency is saying, "Hey, can I buy this $78 microwave?" And I went to the state comptroller and said, "Hey, I'm here a month. Do I really have to approve microwaves? I feel like my job is more important than that." And he goes, "Well,
do I need to mess with this? Yeah.
Do I need to mess with this?" He goes, "Well, in the 1970s, somebody lit popcorn on fire and smoke filled the room. And so we created a policy that you can't buy microwaves without the DAS director approval." And it's just like, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of that policy. Everybody buy your microwaves. If you burn the place down, then we've got a whole nother problem. But anyway, so a governor has to understand those things. But more importantly, whoever the leader is of a company or of the state, they have to have the backbone that it takes to make the difficult decisions that they know isn't going to make everybody happy, but it aligns with the culture of the entity, the company, the state, whatever you want to call it. And so those weighty decisions, if you have somebody that's just trying to make everybody happy, you'll have anarchy, you'll have chaos. And that is a problem. We are a constitutional republic for a reason. We're not a pure democracy. So the majority doesn't rule. We are ruled by a founding document with moral fabric and fiber weaved into it.
Right. It means something. And I think I've worked with other colleagues that, you know, we were supposed to talk about agriculture and how it relates to this podcast. We're not today because I think it's important to talk about this. But some of the best CEOs, in my opinion, and it's proven probably in the book that we read, is you take the org chart and you flip it around and you say, you know what? We're here to serve you. You know, we're here to serve. That's ultimately what the governor of Iowa is, and the president of the United States is. You work for the people of Iowa, and you're trying to say, what do the majority of the people of Iowa want to make their lives better, to preserve this, to preserve that. And I think that's why you're such a candidate that has a moral compass to be able to do this, because, and I want to talk about this now probably, because we're all framed by the morals that we grow up in and the lives that we lead and the little notches that we put on our map. And we waited 33 minutes into this podcast to talk about your map. But in my opinion, your map is what makes you the moral, you know, we all come from something and we all believe in something. And that CEO could have a different set of values. I was just listening to a podcast with ChatGPT OpenAI Sam Altman. And it's scary stuff because you're like, I don't know what is true and what's not. And ultimately the truth derives from the moral compass of who's ever leading OpenAI. And in that case, it's either him or a group of people. So it's important to where that person comes from, in my opinion. So tell your story now. And folks, I'll say this, get ready to, you know, have the hair on your neck get raised here, because this is Adam the man, and this is the man we want running Iowa and being our leader and our more like our you know, the person that we serve and that not that we serve, that serves us. So go ahead.
I appreciate that. I will I appreciate that question in the opening here. And I'm going to start 15 years ago, and I'll work it up to today, which isn't going to take a long time because it's a very straight line into why I'm doing what I'm doing today. 15 years ago, and we kind of talked about it earlier, I was living a selfish life. I had the house, cars, I had stuff. I had a business. I was running it. It was all about me. I was selfish, making stupid, selfish decisions. And I decided, hey, I'm going to take all this. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to invest it into my company. I'm going to shift my business model. I'm going to grow my kingdom even bigger. Sold my house, sold all my belongings, moved into a tiny apartment. It's about as big as the room I'm in right now, which is not that big. And at that moment, I had roughly 10 or so months that I could live with no income coming in, so I could build my business even bigger. A week after I did that, I herniated a disc in my back in the gym, and it led me to exploring and attempting every option I could to avoid back surgery. I'm an athlete, former athlete. I hate surgeries. I hate all that stuff. So I spent thousands of dollars trying to avoid back surgery. Had back surgery, was laid up. I hadn't worked for about 8 months, and I'm spending thousands of dollars trying to figure out, how to avoid this. And I got to a point where it was, again, roughly 15 years ago, where I looked at my bank account. I had no money left. I had no food in my fridge. I had 2 weeks. Had to figure out how I was going to pay my rent at this apartment. And I had a moment where I said, okay, I could either commit suicide or I could commit to Christ. And I thought about the other side for about a split second. I didn't sit there and dwell on it, but I just realized, like, hey, that's a route here. I had too much pride to even explore that even more. So I hit my knees and I said, Lord, I am done. I believe you're real. I'm coming after you with everything I've got, and I'm in. So I was in a puddle of tears. I stood up, and I was a brand new man. Now, I still didn't have any money, still didn't have any food, still didn't have anything. And that was a
Right.
Saturday. Sunday rolls around. Monday, I get a call from a very large organization, who I won't name their name because they're a very political organization. And they said, hey, where have you been the last 8 months? And so I've been laid up on the couch. And they said, here's the deal. We want you to speak on our behalf all across the state this summer. And it was probably 6 months away. And then they said, the problem is that our fiscal year ends like December 31st. So we've got $10,000 in our budget. We need to pay you now in advance of this summer. And I went,
Wow.
amazing. So I had 10
Yeah.
grand. And I'm like, this is okay, Lord, I'm in, I'm all in.
Right.
And it was just thing after thing and one thing after the other. And all of a sudden, the Lord laid on my heart. He said, I want you to plan and prepare to get to the highest possible level that you can to speak about me so that people will listen. So I developed a chart that's downstairs in my little folder. And I started planning and preparing very intentionally to be the type of leader that this country needed. And so I started studying my faith. I became a pastor through the Iowa School of Ministry in Urbandale. I started studying history, started teaching American Heritage Series classes. I started studying my worldview, started teaching the Truth Project. I started praying for the woman I was supposed to marry because I was single at the time. I meet my wife at Panera in Clive, and
Wow.
we
It's
were
crazy.
engaged 5 months later. And it was just one thing after the other. And then that leads to me sort of dipping my foot into the political world so I could learn it and try to understand it from behind the scenes. And my son Riker was born 10 years ago, and 4 months into his life, we noticed there were some things just weren't developmentally correct. Like it's just like his eyes weren't moving right, and his body wasn't moving the way a normal kid his age should at 4 months. And so we went to the doctor. We thought he was blind. They told us he was blind. It's a long story. And then they brought us back to the doctor, my wife and son back to the doctor. No, he's not blind. He's just severely farsighted. And it's like, what is happening? So they needed to figure out, is it a tumor? They could not figure out what was going on, but they knew something was wrong. My wife, through her own research, because she's amazing, she's an attorney, does all sorts of research on anything, finds a Facebook group for Joubert Syndrome, Joubert. And all these symptoms that Riker was showing fit this group and what their children had. So she sent his MRI, his head scan up to Seattle Children's. They said, hey, he has Joubert syndrome. And it was like, I mean, we had things rocking and rolling, and now all of a sudden we have a child that we were told has a syndrome that he will likely never walk and he'll never talk. And as a former athlete, played professional baseball with the Phillies. My dad played professional baseball with the Astros. Both my grandfather and great grandfather played. Like, Riker was going to be my next professional baseball player. And now
Like every dad thinks about their son. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I've got a child that he can't do anything. And so I was just done. I'm like, you know what? Never golfing again, never playing baseball again. I'm done. And a buddy of mine texted me, said, out of nowhere, said, hey, you got to read this John chapter 9. And it's the story of Jesus healing the blind man. And the disciples said, Lord, why was this man born blind? Was it his sins was his sins? And the Lord said it was not his sins. He was born this way so that God's works could be shown through him. And that released a testimony in me that I've been sharing for years. My son, he's 10 years old. He's walking, he's talking, he's going to mainline school. He gave a 5-minute sermon in front of 500 people about how he wasn't supposed to walk and talk. And there wasn't a dry eye in that house, because people need to hear that. They need to hear that story and understand there is a hope and there is a healer, and it's beyond comprehension in any of our understanding. And people are sharing his story now. And it's like, you know what? I don't believe for 1 second that the purpose of me running for governor is for that specific thing. But the fact that that is now part of our story and people are telling that story, praise God. It's amazing. Yeah. And so we have that, and we're working through that. We had an opportunity. Shouldn't even tell this story because it's probably super controversial, but we had an opportunity through genetic whatever to pick a fertilized egg that was for sure not impacted with Joubert syndrome. So we could have chosen to, hey, we can have another, because there's a 25% chance that any child that we'll have will, because it's genetic. So I've got a malformed gene. My wife has a malformed gene. So there's a 25% chance that any child we have will have Joubert syndrome.
Which is a big number, in my opinion. It's a big number.
You have to think about that. And so we had a lot of conversations, my wife and I, and we had an opportunity to fertilize an egg to basically play God and say, we don't want another child with Joubert syndrome. So we're going to pick this egg and plant it and move on. Now, probably super controversial, probably made everybody mad, me just saying that. But we said, you know what? We trust the Lord. We're going to have another child. And Maverick was born. He was diagnosed with Joubert syndrome early. So we're sitting over the weekend, and we're just like, I mean, it was, Riker's so full of joy. It's like, why would anybody not want him around? Like, so and it's just like, and guess what? We now have a son that can teach his little brother all the things that he's been going through. So we sent the MRI. You were praying. I mean, it was hard over the weekend. Sent it to Seattle Children's, and they sent it back and said, hey, he doesn't have it, because he was maybe 2 weeks old or something. And so it was just like, so it was this up, this down, this all around. And so now Maverick is not affected with Joubert syndrome, and he is the perfect person for his older brother. And they get along so well. They're like peas in a pod. Maverick is Riker's defender. Riker got picked on at recess a couple years ago, and Maverick's a little stocky wrestler at 7 years old. And kid that picked on him, Maverick, he was Maverick's age. It was a younger kid picking on on an older kid.
Right.
And it's a long story there, but Maverick wrestled that kid and wiped him out. The kid walked off the mat crying. It was, I don't like it, but it, like
every parent can relate to that, because we've all, and even every person can relate to that. Sometimes, man, the only way to stick up for yourself in situations like that is you gotta say, all right, I'm going to rise up here. Let's go. I'm going to push back. I'm going to push back.
And here we go. And he did it in a fair and square wrestling match at a wrestling tournament. And it was like, all right, man. So we go through all that. And meanwhile, I'm doing different business activities. I started a company with a buddy of mine called Turkey Fan. We reached national distribution across the country in a turkey decoy product, and sold my ownership in that, went back into the consulting world, and kind of bounced to different industries and was learning different things, which at the time I felt like I was just zigzagging through life, through different contracts and different industries. And then lo and behold, I get a call from a recruiter from Kansas, and her name's Kim Borchers. And she said, "Hey, I called a guy in Illinois who knows a buddy of yours in Omaha who's in a Bible study with this guy in Urbandale. And he gave me your name for this job, a cabinet level position with the governor." And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I've been planning and preparing for higher. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and oddly enough, the guy that she got a hold of was the same guy that sent me that John chapter 9 scripture. So
No way.
there's an
Nice.
unbelievable
Wow.
connection there. So anyway, I interviewed with the recruiter, interviewed with the governor, and I was offered the appointment. And for 5 years, I have run the operations of the state and have learned the ins and outs of what we need to do from a state operational perspective, from a culture perspective, from a policy and political perspective. And then when the governor announced she wasn't going to run, the whole cabinet, we were all in the room, and everybody was shocked. I don't think there was a single person in that room out of 16 or 18 of us that realized. And so, through a series of conversations with my wife, I said, I don't think it's the time unless there's demand pulling me into this. I'm not the type of guy that's just going to flail around because I feel like I should be in a position. I need to make sure that it's the right time. And so large organization called, they said, "Hey, we think it's your time." And so I went in, talked to them. I made a few other calls, and demand just pulled me into this so much so that I was back in my gym. It was about 4:15 in the morning, and I was just frozen, thinking, okay, if I do this, I'm going to have to resign my position, go all in. It's a large chunk of income that I'm removing from my family.
Yep.
And I'm not joking, and people can call me weird or whatever, but I had a picture clear as day in my head of the disciples in the boat, in the lake during the storm. And the Lord said, "Don't be the guy that sits in the boat. Get out of the boat." And so I went, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I jumped out of that boat August 19th at 10 a.m. I resigned my position. The governor and I had a good, awesome conversation about it. So it wasn't like any surprise, like had all that stuff sort of figured out. Resigned my position on the 19th, launched that evening. And it has been the last 2.5 weeks, an overwhelming confirmation of this is the exact right thing to do. I believe I'm going to win. If I don't win, it will be it wasn't meant to be. But I'm going to do every single thing that I feel like I'm supposed to do to get to that position, and I'll end up where I'm supposed to be. And I hope that's Terrace Hill, and that's the Golden Dome. But if not, there's something bigger and better out there.
Yeah, I love how you say, it seems like you get some resets in your life at the 4:30, 5 o'clock a.m. gym sessions. And I can totally relate. It's like when you can clear your head and say, okay, I'm going to do the hard thing here real quick first. I'm going to get this out of the way. But then you start reflecting and go, okay, my gosh, what a life here. What a crazy situation and set of circumstances. And, you may have said some things controversial, but one other controversial thing that is very hard for us to answer when people come to us and say, if God really does exist, then how come children have to get sick? And how come there has to be accidents? And how come my dad had to get cancer, which kills me every day? And how come, not everything's perfect? God's is perfect. Why can't we be perfect? And the Bible talks all the time about suffering and the power of suffering. And clearly that's a part of your life. And how do you answer that question when people say, hey, if God really is, then why do bad things happen? And I don't know, that strikes me when I hear the things in your life.
That is one of my least favorite and most favorite questions.
I know.
And
Me too.
I'll tell you why. So number one, kind of goes back to what we talked about early in this, where we can't be attached to this world. We need to understand that this world is not the end all be all. We need to understand that there is a heaven, there is a hell, and that's reality. So I try to tell people we got to sort of distance ourselves from that. And some believe me, some don't, some just want to listen. Yeah. And then I'll say this. I'll say, unfortunately, there's a part of my testimony that I hate talking about because my dad died of cancer. But I said, let me tell you both sides of this story. So with Riker and his diagnosis, he has to go through continual checkups to make sure that his liver is still functioning, his kidneys are still functioning. I believe prophetically, or divine, whatever you want to call it. I quit drinking 15 years ago. I quit chewing tobacco, quit smoking cigars, quit all that stuff. Well, lo and behold, Riker may need my kidneys and may need my liver. So thank the Lord, I've got, I did some damage to him during baseball, but
right.
Hopefully they're fine now. Anyway,
They've repaired themselves. Yeah,
they've repaired themselves. So through a series of regular checkups, we had an ultrasound done, and that showed a mass on Riker's spleen. They did two more ultrasounds. Yeah. And I mean, just the ups and the downs. And so, just the hits just kept coming. And he's got Brown syndrome, which is an eye thing. He's got ocular motor apraxia, all these things that we're just trying to, like, Lord, what are we doing here? So now he's got a mass on his spleen, and then 3 ultrasounds. And they're like, we have to get a better look at this. We got to do an MRI to figure out what's actually going on here. So the morning of his MRI, I forget how old he was, maybe 1.5 years, 2 years old. He's in his crib, his little belly was laying there, his shirt was up. And so my wife and I walked in before he woken up, and I said, I need to pray for him. And I put my left hand on his belly, put my right hand up in the air. And I said, Lord, I'm just praying for healing. I'm just praying for your will to be done. Like, for this kid, for nothing to come out of this, for the MRI to show no results, and that we can all look at each other and go, that was amazing. And I'm not joking, and people are going to think I'm weird. I felt a power come through my hand, into this hand, onto him. And I looked at my wife and I said, he's healed. I said, I think he's healed. And she's like, okay. We take him to his MRI. MRI results come back, no mass, nothing. It was perfectly fine.
Wow.
Ultrasounds are like, there is something here. MRI, after I pray, nothing. So I have that testimony. Now, fast forward a few years, and I get a call from my dad. I was out back mowing, and he said, hey, I've just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it's just like, my dad's my hero. Yeah. I try not to get too emotional, but
I got the same story, man. I got the exact same story with my dad. So I know exactly how you feel.
It was hard. And I said, so what are you going to do? I didn't know what to ask. What are you going to do? He goes, well, I'm not going to sit around and cry about it. I'm like, okay, I'll cry, So I sat there, and I'm just like trying to process it. Well, it hit him hard. It hit him fast. And we knew, and it was going to take him. And I never felt once that I was supposed to try to create some miraculous healing for him. I never felt that way. I prayed, and he was praying, like thanking the Lord for what was going to happen and all the good that was going to come out of it. And I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and I couldn't catch my breath. And what I saw was my dad healed in heaven. He hadn't passed away yet, but he was healed in heaven. And I felt like the Lord say, he'll be healed in heaven. And so when people have those experiences, he passed away. When people have those experiences, I can talk to them about both sides of the equation. My son was healed on earth. My dad was healed in heaven. And we have to understand that that is just a fact of life. It's the part of suffering that we have to go through. And if they're not healed here on earth, we have to figure out a way to reconcile that and make us stronger. And I'll tell you why I just said that. My dad and I had a chance to talk for about 30 minutes before the morphine and other things kicked in, and he kind of just, went loopy before he passed. But he said, Adam, you have to make you stronger. And that has stuck with me. This was 3 years ago. Every single day, I have to be stronger than yesterday, knowing that I'm going to be stronger tomorrow than I am today. So those moments of suffering, if we don't allow them to make us stronger, we're wasting that opportunity. Suffering is an opportunity to become stronger, to become better, to become quicker, faster, smarter, whatever it is. And if we don't take advantage of that, we're missing it.
gosh, I don't know, like 1,000% agree with everything you just said. It's so true. And yeah, I mean, my dad was the exact same way. And what struck me when my dad, same thing, stage 4 cancer, my hero, my best friend, you know, like the guy I went to for everything in life. And it seems like in the snap of a finger, he was gone. And that same sense of response. I have 2 older sisters, and we've always been really, really close. And I just felt this when he passed away. I'll never forget. We were in the ICU, and I go to get a glass of the water or something in the pop machines there, and the nurses were looking at real estate on their computers, like they were oblivious. They knew what just happened, but they've done this so many times, and I don't know why I say that story all the time, but I was like, I guess, yeah, this just happens. And now what's next? What do we got to do next? And I felt the same responsibility you did. Like, all right, if you're not a man now, it's time to be one. It's time to go. And sort of similar to what your dad said, like, go be stronger as a result of this. Go live on through me. And I just only hope that a bunch of us, through to circle this whole conversation back, can live on through what Charlie Kirk did to these students at these universities. Don't be afraid to speak your word, and not your word, the word and the truth. Don't be afraid of it, because it works and it's real, and people need to hear that kind of stuff. And I'm telling you, man, I saw your video when you came out I don't know, I can't remember what date did you
August
send?
19th. It wasn't that long
August
ago.
August 19th. I saw it and I was like, I got to get in touch with him.
Yeah.
Something about it, like same thing. I felt your courage, your bravery, your story. And I just know, you know, politics are weird. You got to figure out all this. And what do I say? What do I not say? And
Yep.
I was just like, I have a feeling this guy just doesn't care what to say and what not to say. He's just going to say it, because enough of that too, right?
No.
Who cares if
Yeah.
you piss the wrong person off, or you end up falling in, you know, making the other person on this side love you for some reason? Who cares?
Yep.
Just say it, be real about it. And the world needs more real people. And I guess I wanted to close maybe with this, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, and you don't have to come up with some profound answer, but I have teenagers. One of them is about to go to college. She's a senior in high school. And what ran through my mind yesterday is, I have a feeling my daughter would have been at that rally. She would have been there because she kind of leans that way politically, probably because her mom and dad do. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's her. It's what she wants to do. Mm-hmm. And so you're the governor now of Iowa, right? Because I do think you're going to get elected. I've been praying about it myself, and I think you're going to get elected. And I think this is going to be the responsibility you're going to feel is even greater. But you're the guy for the responsibility, and anything I can do to help you, I'm going to help you.
I appreciate.
But you're now the governor of Iowa, and Charlie Kirk comes to University of Iowa or Iowa State or UNI, and the same thing happens. And I got kids there. You know, we forget about that too. There was 3,000 people there that are probably. They're going to be afraid to leave their apartment or their dorm room for the next however many weeks, days, months. But the mic is yours, man. And what do you say to the people of Iowa if something like this happens? And I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm not trying to do that, but go ahead.
I appreciate that. I think it all comes down to truth. And again, I'm not trying to come up with a profound answer, but to me, it's very simple. There is good and there is evil. The government, their job is to punish evil and condone good. That's it. The rest is up to the people of Iowa, who this is your state. These are your communities. These are your neighbors. These are your families. And we as a people need to wake up. We need to sit down at the table with each other. We need to look each other in the eye and share our feelings. We got to get off our screens. We got to get off the bleachers. And we got to sit at home and talk to each other. And there are divorced families, there are split families, there are all that stuff. But find ways to talk to each other, to get to know each other as human beings, because we have lost humanity. We've become desensitized to the reality that we are human beings and we have souls. And that soul is going to go either to heaven or hell. So I would challenge Iowa, and I would say, we're here to punish evil and condone good. We are going to find the persons who did this, and we're going to punish them to the fullest extent of the law, and we are not going to stop until that's done. And we're going to condone good. I'm going to be a cheerleader for your family, for your neighborhood, for your community, for your town, for this state, so that we can get back together, and we don't have to sing Kumbaya together, but we've got to speak truth to each other. We got to look each other in the eyes. We got to get to know each other at a much deeper level so that we can start becoming sensitive to the fact that we're all human beings. We're going somewhere. And the time is now to start building those relationships back again.
Amen, brother. Because you know what? In the end, doesn't matter if it's a Hollywood movie or reality, good always wins, right?
Yeah.
It
Amen.
always wins.
Always wins. We know.
Yep.
If you read the word, if you're reading the Bible, and if you believe the Bible's true, read all the way to the end, because the Lord comes back and the Lord wins.
Yeah.
It ain't pretty along the way, but the Lord wins.
Yep, sure does. Mr. Adam Steen, I can't wait to call you governor someday, my friend. And I appreciate you so much doing this. Yeah, I did. I'm going to tell you this. If you win, you got to come back on, and you got to tell me what it's
100%.
like in there. And you got to tell me how crazy it is and how good it is and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to
let's do a remote interview at Terrace Hill.
Amen. I'm in. But yeah, I love it. I appreciate you so much. I will put all your stuff on the show notes so everybody can follow you around. But what's the best way right now? Your Facebook page, I'm guessing, or
I'd say adamsteen.com.
Okay.
Go to adamsteen.com, STEEN, and that's got links to all the social. We're on Instagram, X, Facebook, all that good stuff. So, but adamsteen.com is a good platform to head to first.
Well, keep looking up, man, and keep those shoulders back. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to this ride, and we will definitely be watching here from Johnson, Iowa. And to all my Germinate listeners, I appreciate you guys listening to this one as well. I know it didn't have much to do with agriculture and business, but we'll talk about that, because we know Iowa's an ag state, but there was some evil yesterday that happened, and we needed to talk about the good that can become of it. And I think you're looking at one of the guys. So Adam Steen, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it, brother.
All right. See ya.
Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.